Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend this workshop. My name is Liz Hart, and I'm the founder and executive director of Tailored for Success. Today, we'll be covering navigating a virtual job fair, and we will cover just the basics of navigating a job fair, what it is, what the benefits are, what the drawbacks are, and how to prepare. A few housekeeping items. I'm going to keep everybody muted so that we cut down on any background noise, and I will monitor the chat in case you have any questions during the presentation. As you know, this presentation is being recorded and slides, and the recording will be sent out to you a few days after the workshop. So again, welcome. My name is Liz Hart, the founder and executive director of Tailored for Success. Tailored for Success is a nonprofit organization based in Malden, Massachusetts, that works with job seekers to give them the resources, soft skill training, and what they need to find and keep a job and succeed within their chosen job or career. I have been working in the nonprofit sector and workforce development for over 20 years now, and I love to do these workshops and share the information that I have on anything that is going on in our changing landscape of what is now the new normal and what the workforce is changing to. So what I'm going to do now is just go over the agenda really quickly. This is what we will be covering today, and I will leave time at the end for questions. At that time, I will shut off the recording so that the questions can be kept confidential, but we will go over virtual versus in-person job fairs, what a virtual job fair is, and how it's different from a regular in-person job fair. Secondly, we'll look at how to prepare and the steps that you can take to prepare before a virtual job fair and what you can do to make sure you're using your time effectively. What you will see is a lot of the information that I go over today can be used for a in-person, not just a virtual job fair. So a lot of the information overlaps. Next, I will talk a little bit about what to expect at a virtual job fair, the different things that can happen, including chats, company presentations, how you can network, and so forth. Next, we will look at how to follow up and tips to help you succeed at the virtual job fair. Again, I will just repeat that the webinar is being recorded and you will get slides and the recording a few days after the webinar. And also I have put together a sheet that summarizes and contrasts the difference between an in-person, a virtual, and what both job fairs have in common. Okay, so let's get started. So what is a job fair? A job fair is just a way to bring employers and employees together. And with a virtual job fair, you meet virtually instead of in person. But whether it's in person or virtual, a job fair is an opportunity for job seekers and employers to meet. Again, a lot of the information that I talk about today will cross over to in-person, though we will be focusing on virtual job fairs because it seems that that is the way things are going now. It's more cost effective for the employers and, to be quite honest, for employees to attend virtual job fairs. I mean, I don't know if you remember back the days where you used to go to in-person job fairs and stand in lines for hours and, walk around big rooms, visiting tables, talking to employers. Having a virtual job fair is just so much more efficient and a better way, I think, for the job seeker to get to know the companies that are participating and for making a positive first impression with that employer. So what is a virtual job fair? So again, like I said, it brings employers together with job seekers. One thing that you want to remember is that employers are really excited to be at job fairs because especially now with the unemployment rate being what it is, there are a lot of open positions out there that employers are trying to fill. And so this is just a way to help feed the pipeline for positions that companies have. So, again, like I said, there's no more standing in line to be put into a queue waiting for your chance to speak to a recruiter. You don't have to stand in long lines. You can sit comfortably where you are in front of your computer. You can do a lot of really neat things at a virtual job fair that you could not do at an in-person. It is a chance to evaluate the fit between the job seeker and the employer. You can reach out and you can talk to the employer, have a virtual chat, and which is really great if you're an introvert and don't necessarily like going to in-person events where sitting behind your computer screen makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. This is a great way to do that. And when you are at the virtual job fair and you are in queue or waiting to speak to a company recruiter, you can monitor the different conversations that are going on at the time of the virtual job fair, where you don't even have to say anything if you don't want to. So, not only does a virtual job fair bring employers together with job seekers, but also gives you a chance to evaluate the fit between the two of you. It also helps to give you some practice for interviewing and networking. Most people are not as gifted at networking or interviewing as they would like to be. Like any other skill, networking and interviewing, although they're soft skills, they take practice. And the more times that you do it, the better you get at it. Even for the recruiters, employers don't always know how to interview. Sometimes at these job fairs, especially if it's a smaller company, they may not have dedicated human resources people there to do the interviewing. So it's not the person that you're talking to, it may not be their primary job. So they need practice in interviewing and networking also. So it's a good way for both sides to practice networking skills and interviewing skills. It's a good way for you to practice answers to those difficult interview questions that you may have without being in person, which might make you a little bit more nervous again if you're an introvert. And it does have all the features of an in-person job fair and just so much more. At a in-person job fair where you used to get, you go to each table and you get maybe different tchotchkes like pens, stress balls, keychains, or cups, or whatever the company is giving away. You can still do the same thing at a virtual job fair. Companies have ways of downloading different documents and ways for you to get different takeaways that you would get in an in-person job fair. So you're not going to miss out on that just because it's a virtual job fair. You'll still get really good information and really good takeaways from attending. And I would encourage you, if you have not ever gone to a virtual job fair, to do so. It is, again, a little bit different than an in-person, but it's definitely something I think that you should take advantage of. So there's this very famous quote: proper preparation prevents poor performance. And this certainly applies to a virtual or in-person job fair. There are a number of things that you can do prior to the job fair to prepare so that you get the most out of the job fair. We have found that job seekers who succeed at job fairs are the ones who prepare and actually have a plan of action. They're not just showing up on the day of the job fair, but they actually have put some thought into it and sketched out a plan of action of what they want to do and what they want to get out of the job fair. And I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. So with that, when we're talking about preparing, there are some things that you can do, and these are really just the tip of the iceberg in terms of getting ready for a job fair. But I think the most 10 important things that I want you to know. And the first one is to do your homework. Don't just sign up for a job fair and not research the companies and the employers that are going to be there beforehand. You want to research the employers and the job openings that they have to see if it's a fit for what you're looking for. And what I would like for you to consider is to go beyond demonstrating basic knowledge about the company. The virtual job fair sites will list all the companies that are participating and give you basic information on their pages. But I think it would be better for you to do a Google search with specific question in mind. For instance, if you are going to a job fair and the company is, say, Bank of America, you want to do a Google search where you're trying to find out what challenges have they faced in the last couple of years? What is going on with the bank now? Especially if you are looking to get a position with a bank or in financial institution. There are so many mergers and takeovers now that if you don't know where they stand in terms of, maybe another company taking them over, and also with private companies too. If a company is at a job fair and in the news recently, there has been a lot of talk about a potential takeover or a move to another location, you want to know that. That's something that you can discuss with the representatives of the company when you're there. And it also shows that that you have done your homework, that you're not just applying for jobs, like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks, but you're actually doing the research necessary to make sure that the company is a good fit. You're looking at their culture, how many employees that they have, what their diversity, equity, and inclusion commitment is, anything that's important to you. Maybe it's important to you to find a company that is open to, if not remote, but a hybrid working situation. That should all be something that you can find with a Google search and doing a little bit of research on their website. And not just Google, expand to going to their social media sites. Perhaps you'll go to their Facebook page. Definitely you want to check in their LinkedIn page to see what's going on. And also with LinkedIn, you want to find out if there's somebody that you know there that you can maybe make a connection with prior to the job fair. The second thing is to check your technology. Murphy's Law is always in effect, whether it's in person or virtual. So you want to make sure your webcam, microphone, and connection are in good working order. And it's always a good idea to log on a few minutes earlier to the virtual fair just to make sure things are working correctly. If you have recently been using your computer to, go to a workshop like this and everything seems fine, you still need to check it the day of the job fair. Something could go wrong. It's always something that you don't think is going to happen that does happen. So you don't want to miss out on any good information by not making sure your technology is working. And the other thing that people don't think about too much is their physical space. When you're at a virtual job fair, you should view it the same way you do as an in-person job fair. You're basically at an interview. When you're talking to a representative of a company, Even if they're not the hiring manager, those people will be making notes about you, how prepared you were, and your physical space means will be taken into consideration. Now, not everyone has a private office that they could go to in their house or a dedicated space, but do a little bit of preparation work beforehand, clear any clutter or clothes or unmade bed or whatever. I've noticed lately that a lot of people are not using the blurred background with Zoom or using a virtual filter. They're just showing, like a bookcase or something in their house. That's perfectly fine. As long as things are neat, just make sure that you're paying attention to what your physical space will look like to somebody else. Even before, probably doing the homework and checking the technology, is to make sure that you're updating your resume and your LinkedIn profile, and not just updating it to make sure that it's up to date, but that it's targeted to the positions that you're going to be applying for. You may want to change your summary statement. You may want to change some of the keywords in your resume or your LinkedIn profile, because the employers will be looking at this afterwards. And some of the virtual job fairs allow you to submit your resume beforehand. So you may, they may be checking up on you to see if you're going to be a good fit before the job fair even begins. This is also a really good time to practice your 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch, where you are introducing yourself to a recruiter or a hiring manager. Be ready with short accomplishment statements and stories. I recommend using what is called the problem, action, and result statement, or PAR, P-A-R is the acronym, where you're talking about a problem that you may have encountered in past positions, the actions that you took, and the result. Oftentimes, job seekers will talk about how how they handle certain problems, right, while they're working, and what actions they took, and they forget to include the result. The result is what the employer is looking for. They want to find out, how did you handle this situation? And so if they ask you a question of, how did you deal with a customer that was angry, or how did you deal with working on a team where you didn't necessarily get along with a team member? You want to talk about that, but also include the result of the actions that you took. It's very, very important. You also want to make sure that in part of your homework with looking at the company and the job descriptions, you want to make sure that you're ready to ask and answer interview questions. There's always going to be that time where they say, do you have any questions for us? And that's really just a clue to find out whether or not you have done your homework on the company. You should have at least 1 to 2 questions on each company that you visit in the virtual job fair. And they can be the same questions. It doesn't have to be different. It could be something very, very generic, like, how did you get your position here? What do you like about working for this company? And so forth, that you could use for multiple companies. So you don't necessarily have to make them specific, but you certainly can. And always know that, the general questions that are always asked at every interview, I have your resume here, but could you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Could you tell me a little bit more about your educational background and why you chose this particular major? Or, if you've been out of school for a while, and if you're, for instance, switching careers or switching industries, what is making you switch industries at this particular time? So think of the questions that they are going to be asking you. Don't think that just because it's a virtual job fair that you don't have to dress for it. You have to decide beforehand what you're going to wear. Business casual is perfect for a virtual job fair. If it makes you feel more like you're at an actual interview by putting on a jacket, that's fine. But if you just have a nice shirt or a blouse, That's really all you need. You don't necessarily have to have a jacket, but you want to make sure that you pay attention to the colors that you're wearing, making sure that you're not wearing anything that's too busy or just too casual, say like a t-shirt or something like that. If you're a woman, make sure that you do your makeup, get a haircut beforehand, things like that. Still applies whether it's virtual or not. What I really like about having a virtual interview is that you can have your note paper and your pen, right near you, near your computer, and give yourself a little cheat sheet of things that are how you're going to answer questions. And it makes it a whole lot easier than it was in person. But you want to make sure that you do have something available that you can write notes on, so that when you follow up, you can maybe mention, something that the hiring manager or recruiter said during the interview. You also want to set a calendar reminder. If you're in active job search, you're probably going to multiple job fairs, having different interviews. So, just set up a calendar reminder so that you don't miss out on it. I know that there is a really big multi-state job fair being conducted next week through the Mass Hire system. And it's a 2-day job fair. And so you don't want to miss that. And so setting a reminder where you have so many other things to do in regards to your job search is just a fail-safe for you. And with that, also have a way to track what you're doing, where you're applying, whether the job fair is virtual or not. Have some sort of a tracking system. It could be a spreadsheet. It could be something that you make on Google Docs to do that. But have a way to check, to track what you're doing, who you're seeing, what the follow-up is on it, when decisions will be made, and so forth. So now let's just turn to what to expect if you've never been to virtual job fairs. Many companies will be participating because, like I said earlier, it is very cost effective for a company to participate in a job fair. Most of them will have to pay some sort of fee to be there, but they won't have to worry about reimbursing their employees for travel and parking and things like that. So a lot of companies will be taking advantage of having a virtual participation in a job fair. What you'll do first is you'll log in and you'll choose the company booths that you want to visit. Again, most virtual job fairs will have a list of all the companies. They'll tell you, a little bit about the open positions. And so that's part of your homework and setting a plan of action for participating in the job fair. I even noticed that the one next week with Mass Hire has a training session on how to use their software. I think most virtual job fair platforms will have that. And you want to make an effort to familiarize yourself with the platform beforehand so that you don't miss out on any. Sometimes they have virtual workshops going on during these job fairs, or networking rooms where you can kind of pop in and network with fellow job seekers, or just network with recruiters at different companies that you might not even be interested in. So you want to make sure you're really familiar with how to navigate around the software. And when you're in the job fair and you are clicking on a particular company, don't be surprised when you visit a company booth that a conversation may already be ongoing. Sometimes companies will make appointments with job seekers beforehand. So there may be a company talking to an employee, a prospective employee. You can just sit and listen quietly to the conversation. You don't want to interrupt and say, oh, excuse me, I popped in for a minute. I didn't realize that a conversation was going on. Just sort of wait for the cue to talk. The employers will know when someone has joined their booth. So no worries about that. It's also a really kind of good way to see what questions other people are asking that you might be able to ask when you go to the booth, or that booth or another booth. And just know the companies will be very engaged. They will be high energy. They will be expecting high energy from you. Because like I said, they want to be hiring. This is why they're there. They have positions that they want to fill, and yeah, they're going to be very engaged. And, just a little side note, when you're looking at the job descriptions that the companies put out, remember that these job descriptions are just a wish list and a laundry list of things that they would love in their ideal employee. They don't necessarily expect to get all of those things. So don't let the fact that you don't have one or two qualifications stop you from applying. Employers are willing to train. They're willing to hire people with not as much experience or technical skills that they would like in this market. So take advantage of that. I said earlier that there's plenty of networking opportunities at virtual job fairs. And so there's more to do than just connect with the companies. You can sometimes get virtual career coaching while you're there. You can attend presentations or workshops either by the companies or by the host. Sometimes, especially for really big virtual job fairs, they will hire career coaches to be in breakout rooms so that if job seekers need a little bit more coaching on their resume or how to present themselves or to practice their elevators pitch, they can do that right there. And like I said, there are what they have virtual networking lounges, so which again is really, really cool. And again, if you're an introvert, this is a great opportunity to just sort of pop into a virtual networking lounge and just listen to what people are saying. It's a really great opportunity. So I want to, before we leave, give you some tips and tricks that I think might be able to help you that you might not have thought of. Again, I think I mentioned this, you want to check in as early as you can. And make sure that all your technology is working, and most online career fairs will have a landing page, again, with the companies that are attending. Check it often, because just because you checked it a couple of weeks ago doesn't mean that new companies haven't been added. So continue to check the landing page up until the day of the virtual job fair. Again, it is always important to research the companies, ideally a week before, to give yourself enough time. You're looking for a specific company that you want to work for. You probably already have done this. Update your research because things are happening with companies all the time. And if it helps you, don't hesitate to prepare responses to frequently asked interview questions beforehand, typing them out. You don't want to be reading your answers. That's not what I'm suggesting, but what I'm suggesting is that you practice answering them so that it's just very natural sounding. You're talking about yourself, even if you're nervous, you want to sound as natural and as professional as possible. And if you're reading answers that you've typed out, it's just not going to sound as professional. It's going to sound very stiff and stilted, and people can generally tell when you're reading answers. So the more you practice it, the better you'll get at just talking about yourself, answering these questions, asking questions of companies, and so that you're sounding as natural and it's more like yourself as possible, because companies don't want to hire someone that you're pretending to be. They want to hire you the way you are. And remember, it's a two-way street here. Your goal with a job fair, an interview, is to get an offer. It's not to make a decision right then and there as to whether or not you're going to take the position. So acting as much as you can the way you normally act is going to be to your benefit. So then that way you'll know if you're having a good fit or not. If you're responding to them and they're responding to you and it seems really natural, then chances are that when you start the job, you'll be happy. When you're in the chat rooms, talking with recruiters or asking questions, make sure to watch your spelling. That shows attention to detail. If you type really fast, just double check that you're spelling things correctly. And unless told otherwise, always address people as Mr., Ms., etc., so that you're showing respect for them and for their position. Lastly, whether it's an in-person job fair or virtual, follow-up is extremely important. They may see hundreds of people in one day. You want to make sure that they remember you. And one way for them to remember you is to follow up with them afterwards. That's why taking notes is so important. You want to send a thank you email to everyone that you spoke to. And if possible, put in something that you might have talked about that might, spark their remembrance of you. Immediately request a connection through LinkedIn and add a personal note, like saying, thank you for taking the time to speak to me today at the job fair. I would like to connect with you on LinkedIn so that we can further discuss opportunities at your company. I'm hoping that you will accept this connection, something like that. You can also, don't be afraid to ask to schedule an informational interview outside of the job fair. Let this be your only chance to talk to the recruiter at a particular company. And especially if it's a company that you're not too sure if you would be interested in working there, if the job is something that you want to pursue, just set up an informational interview. Most companies are really fine with doing things like that. It helps them, it helps you. And again, it's another way of practicing your skills in interviewing and networking. And you can learn an awful lot of information from an informational interview. Make sure that if you've not done informational interviews before, that you have a list of questions to ask, reasons why you're asking for an informational interview so that you're not wasting the recruiter's time. And don't expect a interview from it. You're really just gathering information that you may be able to use at another time. But it's a really great way, whether at a job fair or if you want to network with someone on LinkedIn, to just start a conversation and start to develop a relationship with the company, and so that they get to know you and you get to know them. So now, if there are any questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to stop the recording now. I want to thank you all for taking the time to jump on this quick webinar about some tips and tricks for navigating a virtual job fair. As I said, the recording and a handout will be sent to you within a few days of the workshop, but I want to wish you the best of luck in your job search and with a virtual job fair. So I'm going to stop the recording again, and thank you again for coming.